Hi and welcome everyone. My name is Stefan Knutsson. I'm an equity analyst here at ABG, and with me today I have the CFO of Flexion, Niklas Koresaar. This morning you reported your Q2 numbers, and it was a good report. The revenue growth was 61% compared to last year. Are you happy with the development?
We are growing by 61% on an annual basis. We increased the quarterly revenue from last quarter over quarter with 19%, which is really strong numbers. EIP margin goes up by over 70% on an annual basis. We're positive EBITDA, so it's the Flexion train is steaming ahead really well at the moment.
Perfect. And what would you say was the main growth drivers for this quarter?
We commented on that the top games are still going up further. The top tier games are well above $500,000 now. We also commented on that the next generation of top tier games have started to perform. So hopefully we see some more games moving up there. So it's a strong kind of development across the portfolio, really.
Good. And if we look at recent game signings, I would say that you have had success in that area as well. You landed a couple of new top tier games during the summer. Can you tell us a bit more about those titles?
In general, I think we see an increased interest. I think we're coming to that here also, but we see an increased interest in alternative distribution, and we signed and launched a number of games. We have even from Top Games, which is generating $8 million in Google Play on a monthly basis. So we have a soft target of say 10% of Google Play, so that games we have it in all channels, and if we get that moving, it can be a really strong contributor to our growth for quite many quarters going forward. So it's very exciting. But generally, we're taking in quite a lot now, and its portfolio gets stronger and stronger.
And I also seen that you bring in new developers, and you also expand your relationship with developers that you have had an agreement with before. How would you describe your strategy in that department?
So we have a team that do new sales to new developer, of course. It's a relatively small team working across the world, really. But I think it is US, Europe, and the whole of Asia, including China, of course. So that works well. But from what actually is even more encouraging for us is that we get more games from existing developers. And what can be a better proof that we're doing a good job that they start to give us more games? I think that is a really good sign that we're doing a good job here.
Perfect. And if we look at the gross margin development for your in-app purchases, it was up compared to last year in the quarter, but it was also the third consecutive quarter where we saw a decline quarter over quarter, or compared to last quarter, in the gross margin. Can you tell us a bit more about this development and how you think it will look if we look ahead?
Yeah, I think we're still talking a third of a percent, or it's relatively small numbers, but you're right in that it goes a little bit down. It's from a quarter to quarter, you can't really draw a conclusion because different games have different rev shares in different channels, and dependent on which markets and which countries and stores are performing and which games are, you see a fluctuation over a period in it. I also mentioned in the CFO wording that we had very little extra kickers or contributions to the margin this quarter. So normally in our model, we quite often get a little bit extra somewhere, which then boosts the margin a little bit, and we didn't see any of that. So it was a very clean margin in this quarter, and that's why it was kind of the lowest it can be on the current level. So, but I think that's where we are. It's in the also going forward is dependent on how big the developers are, as I said, we tried that many times that after stores, we would try to achieve 20%. It depends on the size of the developers and how much work we're supposed to do on the marketing side that determines that.
Okay,
So
perfect.
it varies a bit.
And if we look at the general market trends, we have seen a huge shift in Apple's iOS system with identification for advertisers, or just short IDFA. How will that impact Flexion, if it will impact Flexion in any way?
I think it's very interesting. And so what's happening is that developers get less control of the user data, basically. And so we heard it from several sources that the large developers are looking at how they're gonna secure the kind of distribution going forward. In the past, it was very much to buy users in simplified buying users in Facebook and just doing user acquisition campaign through that. And now they have to be more clever, looking wider. And it's definitely going to increase the interest for what we call kind of alternative distribution. The stores who are in user acquisition in those markets, influencer marketing in those areas. It looks very promising. It's another driver for the markets we're in, really.
That is interesting. And do you see any other trends that in the market that might affect Flexion in a positive or negative way?
Yeah, the Chinese, the government there are taking control. So they are working with, for example, the minor protection and less gaming screen times and whatever they're doing. And that, again, that controls the developer on a certain market, a bit like the developers on Apple, which is very much the Western world, I guess. And that means that developers need to seek other ways. So they're coming out of, more and more developers are probably coming out of China. And there you see Flexion helping them with a distribution outside Google and Apple. So all of this is kind of factors driving these new markets.
Interesting. And we also got news this morning that you strengthened the board with 2 new acquisitions. Can you tell us a bit more about Mr. Pablo and Mr. Nikolai and what they will bring to the board?
Yeah, it's very good for us. This is for Flexion version 2, the next phase. So we're now going from what we call organic traffic, where we get traffic through the stores basically for free. And now we're working with this new kind of strategies around paid traffic. Pablo is coming from Greenman and Bokio, works a lot with startups and make them grow, and also international expansions. So he will contribute a lot in that space. And of course, Mr. Nikolai from Marcel is working in Altarias, really high on the operational side there, and it's also been in the Disney group, etc. So he will help us to, I think it's fair to say, with the scalability of the company and how we move the company to the next phase. So it's very good. Really helps our board.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of experience to bring into the.
Perfect.
Yeah. And lastly, what will be the key focus areas for Flexion for the remainder of 2021?
That's an interesting one. So it's a lot happening. We do have a very strong pipeline at the moment, and I think we've seen it here. I think you saw that the launch time of game we managed to get down quite a lot. We mentioned before that we had plus 3 months to get out the games. I think the last 2 games was 6 weeks. That's an area. Delivery is something we're working still a lot on automation on that. And then it's converting all the sales lead into more games, strengthen the portfolio, and then these new initiatives under paid traffic, which is very much on a strategic level at the moment, and looking how to do it. Are we doing it in-house? Are we doing it through M&A, partnerships, etc.? So there's a lot going on in Flexion at the moment. Very, very exciting.
It will be very, very fun to follow your developments during the autumn and winter. And I would like to thank you for coming here and sharing this moment with us.
Okay, thank you very much.